MediaTek recently launched the Dimensity 9500S, with the Redmi Turbo 5 Max being the debut model. So, how does its performance actually hold up? In this video, let's take a performance preview. First, let us examine the architecture of the Dimensity 9500S. It is built on a 3nm process, featuring a massive 30 billion transistors. The CPU adopts the second generation, all-big core architecture, including a Cortex-X 925 Ultra, large core, with a main frequency of 3.73 GHz, 3 Cortex-X4 Ultra, large cores at 3.3 GHz. And 4 Cortex, a 720 big cores, running at 2.4 GHz. The GPU is the G925 megacoulombs 12 with a main frequency of 1.61 GHz. As we can see, the on-paper specs of the Dimensity 9500S are quite impressive. Meanwhile, Redmi has equipped it with LPDDR5X Ultra and UFS4.1. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the benchmarks. In the Geekbench 6 tests, it scored 2,739 for single-core and 8,595 for multi-core. In the 3D Mark test, its Wildlife Extreme score reached 6,655 points. But of course, benchmarks are just benchmarks. What we really care about is the gaming performance. For this test, we conducted continuous 30-minute gaming sessions, keeping room temperature at 25 degrees Celsius and screen brightness at 200 nits, which is 75% brightness for the Redmi Turbo 5 Max. The software version used is HyperOS 3.0.5.4. Next, let's look at Honor of Kings. We tested a ranked match and manually excluded the frame rates during the matchmaking process. Focusing solely on actual gameplay, under these conditions, it achieved an average frame rate of 120.1 FPS and power consumption of 3.4 W. The frame rate curve is exceptionally stable, with almost no fluctuations. The 1% low FPS also reached 114.7, providing excellent smoothness. For reference, let's look at two competitor performance models in the same price range. While they can both achieve full frame rates with similar power consumption, if we look at the extreme details, you'll find that their 1% low FPS is slightly inferior to this Redmi. Regarding scheduling, Redmi's Frenzy engine has been fully upgraded through SoC integrated frequency scaling and compilation optimization. It allows for more precise dynamic adjustments, achieving full frame rates with low power consumption. Taking Honor of Kings as an example, Redmi has set a base frequency for each CPU core and dynamically boosts it based on the actual load. The regulation is highly responsive, and the utilization is also dynamically adjusted according to the real-time workload. This flexible and precise scheduling is a key reason why Redmi achieves such high 1% low FPS. In the Peace Elite test, we ran the game in HDR high definition at 90 FPS. Redmi's average frame rate was 89.4 FPS with a power consumption of 3.9 watts. The frame rate remained very stable and smooth throughout. For comparison, the performance of competitor models at the same price looks like this, still showing some slight frame rate fluctuations. As for scheduling, Redmi reduced the utilization of the 4A720 cores, relying primarily on the supercores for performance output. Meanwhile, the CPU frequency range has widened, reflecting significant variations in actual load across different scenarios. In terms of power consumption, it can peak at 8.4 watts, which is more than double the average power consumption. This indicates that in high-load scenarios, its power consumption can ramp up instantaneously. The response is extremely snappy. In Genshin Impact, we tested in Sumeru City with a high constellation Yelan and Sayu to trigger the Animal Resonance speed boost. We used skills throughout to accelerate map traversal. The Redmi Turbo 5 Max runs at a resolution of 887p, with all graphics settings maxed out. Under these conditions, it achieved an average frame rate of 60 FPS with a power consumption of 5.4 W. For reference, we've also included data from competing performance models in the same price range. While they can also maintain full frame rates, their 1% low FPS is slightly inferior. In terms of scheduling, Genshin Impact is similar to Honor of Kings, both maintaining a baseline CPU frequency. However, since Genshin Impact has a higher workload, Redmi has set a higher baseline frequency, along with a higher frequency ceiling. In terms of power, it can peak at 8.8 W, which is a very aggressive performance release. Finally, let's look at the performance in Honkai Star Rail. The test scenario is the golden hour, involving non-stop sprinting across the map. In the game space, we enabled custom mode with the default resolution, resulting in a resolution of 997p at very high graphic settings. Under these conditions, the Redmi Turbo 5 Max Avenue averaged 59.3 FPS, with 7.6 W of power consumption. Regarding detailed scheduling, because Star Rail's load is so heavy, Redmi can't simply unleash performance blindly. Instead, it has to optimize through clever throttling. When the Cortex-X 925 Ultra large core ramps up its frequency, at this point, the performance is more than sufficient. To avoid performance overkill, the X4 Super Core will downclock to reduce power consumption and heat. In extremely heavy load scenarios, it can instantly ramp up the power draw to 9.9 watts. By now, we have gained a solid understanding of the performance of both the Redmi Turbo 5 Max and the Dimensity 9500S. As a flagship chip, the Dimensity 9500S itself is quite impressive, handling max frame rates in most games with ease. Meanwhile, the optimization of Redmi's new Frenzy engine is outstanding. The 1% low FPS is near the cap, virtually eliminating all microstutters. The flexible scheduling strategy also further lowers power draw and heat, sustaining max frame rates for a superior gaming experience. Redmi Turbo 5 Max brings a flagship chip to the 2.5K price range for the first time, setting the performance ceiling for its price bracket.